afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. Today, we are excited to share a presentation with you in partnership with Zippin, Allegiant Stadium, Levi, and Levy on how to incorporate checkout free into your concessions. In this webinar today, we're going to learn about best practices and even how to deploy mid-season. Everyone, please remember to register for the 2023 ALSD conference in Indianapolis. We have our growing tech division as well. We will have our tech symposium again next year, hoping to have as many tech and strategy folks out there come and participate with us and bring a friend. So why don't we get started here and let's kick it over to Adam with introductions.
Thanks, Jessica. Hi, everybody. My name is Adam Feldman. I'm the Vice President of Stadium Management, Programming, and Guest Experience for the Las Vegas Raiders. I've been with the team for 16 years now, spent most of my time in the ticketing world, and recently have moved over to stadium management. Since opening our stadium in 2021 to fans, guest experience has obviously been a huge part of our focus. And partners like Zippin have really helped elevate the experience for our guests. I'm looking forward to talking about it with everyone today.
Thanks, Adam.
Hey, everyone. I'm Sandeep, Managing Director for DBK Studio and VP of Strategy and Analytics for E15, part of Levy. I think I know many people on the call today have been Adam and Jonathan's partner in this for a while. Have been with Levy for about 8 years. And as you'll talk about in my role with the stadium, I've been part of the beginning of Allegiant Stadium and really have seen this come to life. So excited to talk to you about checkout free today.
Excellent. Thanks, Sandeep.
Hi, everyone. Jonathan Katz. I am an account manager with Zippin, joined about a year ago, focusing on deployments across sports entertainment. And prior to this, I was actually with Levy for about 8 years at Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. Left there as the Assistant Director of Operations. Now, very excited to help continue the expansion of frictionless technology into sports entertainment venues.
Excellent. Thank you all very much. So let's get things started. Let's toss it back over to Adam. Adam, tell us about Allegiant Stadium, high level, the key goals in building a new stadium, important elements. What was the number one thing that you wanted to deliver from a fan experience point of view?
Yep. So, as I mentioned, we opened in 2021 to guests. We actually had an extra year to plan, which I don't know if you want to call that lucky or unlucky, but we were ready in 2020. As most people know, as most people probably know, we closed the building to fans during the COVID year. So we had an extra year to, I'll say, walk the stadium once it was complete, and figure out where we thought there might be bottlenecks, where we thought there might be, areas where there were long lines. And one of our main focuses from ownership from the get-go was keeping fans in their seats without affecting revenue. How do we keep fans in their seats, not in lines, not, missing the action, missing concerts, missing football, all of that. As we explored our different options, Zippin was kind of a no-brainer for us. We spent a lot of time, as I mentioned, looking for where different lines were going to congest a lot. So where a bathroom line might meet a concession line, and how people would get lost. We found those locations pretty early into having guests in 2021 and started working with Jonathan and his team on how we might be able to alleviate some of that congestion while still getting people in and out of lines to purchase their concessions and do all that. With a smaller stadium, our capacity is about 62,000. Finding the right location for this was really our main focus. I would say that was the most important detail when we were looking into where to put these stores and how we were going to operate them. It wasn't necessarily where people were coming into the building. It was where they were getting stuck once they were inside.
Excellent. Excellent. I just want to let the audience know, for all the participants today, the Q&A section will be monitored throughout this webinar. So if you have any questions, do feel free to type them there. Excuse me. Sandeep, can you please share your Levy's role in this and describe your partnership with Allegiant? Can you tell us what it's been like for you?
Yeah, and as Adam knows, we've actually been a partner with Allegiant for quite a long time. This was an early opportunity for us, which doesn't always happen as hospitality partner. We actually got involved in 2018 into 2019 with the design of the building, with a lot of fan research and data and analytics about what to program and where. And I would say deep down between all of the parties, we knew what was kind of coming with checkout free, but it hadn't scaled at all at that point. So we built in some flexibility about what could be of the future, which has now come to life. So we've been at the table day to day from an operating perspective, from a data and analytics perspective, and it's been great to see all of this come to life today.
Excellent. So, Jonathan, can you give us your perspective on all that we've heard from Allegiant and Levy here, and straight from Zippin?
Yeah, and absolutely, Jessica. Prior to doing that, I just want to make sure everyone has like a good understanding of how the platform actually functions. And to that end, we have a slide here that will come up momentarily that gives everyone a pretty good overview. So as you can see in this graphic on the left-hand side, you have a female in the purple dress that's walked in. If she's walked in with a credit card, she has either scanned or tapped the credit card at an Ingenico device to get in. If you're using a mobile wallet through a loyalty provider or anyone else, she has either scanned the QR code or the barcode. And then from there is where the magic actually really starts to happen. Once she's into the location, we create a digital shopping cart that follows her as she moves about the space. Our computer vision AI technology will watch her as she's moving. It's really just tracking her to see, how she's interacting. When she walks up to any of the shelves, if she picks up an item, that automatically gets added to her digital shopping cart. As she continues shopping, if she puts that back down, it's automatically removed. And then whatever she has left in her possession, if that's in her handbag, if that's, in her hand, if she's given that to anyone, anything that is still in her digital shopping cart is automatically charged to her credit card or her payment method that she used to walk into the space. And all she has to do is zip out of the location. She doesn't have to check out with anyone. She doesn't have to stop. It's really just that simple. All she has to do is zip out of the location and she's done. She can get back to the action. There's no additional hurdles to her returning to what she really wants to do, which is watch the event.
Excellent. Very helpful. So, Adam, if I may jump back to you and learn a little bit about the experience and the results so far, can you tell us how many checkout-free stores does Allegiant have, and what was in their place previously?
Yep. Thanks, Jessica. So we have 4 Zippin free stores. The way we set them up, they're really in 2 locations. So we set it up, imagine if you're on the 300 level, even with the 50-yard line, we have 2 stores that kind of face each other. So you would enter from the ends and then you would exit almost together towards each other. Before that, we had beer portables in those locations. So somewhat apples to apples. The Zippin stores are larger than the portables are, but the way that the line queuing goes, it takes up a lot less space. We went from, beer portables that had, let's call it 4 or 5 different options, right, to a Zippin store where we have over 40 different SKUs inside, not counting the food. That's just the beverages. We have a domestic, ready-made cocktails. We've got non-alcoholic, you name it, it's in there. It's actually been really nice for our partners too. Some of our beverage partners have taken advantage of this and really tried, I'd say, some of their different canned cocktails, which has been, a big up and coming product. Food has actually done pretty well. We sell an unbelievable amount of popcorn at the end of these. It's almost like when you're at the grocery store and you get there and you're standing and you're waiting and there's gum, like everyone gets to the end and they all grab a box of popcorn. And that has been for every event that we've done. I want to jump back though also and talk about just getting these into the stadium. Once we had the contract signed, it was very, very smooth. And I know one of the things that I'm guessing will be a question is, can you do this in the middle of a season? Do you have to wait until an off season to do it? The way we've booked our building with concerts and shows and other sporting events, we didn't really have an off season. We got these up and running in August during our preseason football window, in a week in between where we had an event on a Saturday and an event on the next Saturday. They came in on Monday. These things were up and running by Friday. And it's been really amazing how few, if any, issues there have been. Like Jonathan was saying, the tap and go or the credit card chip reading functionality, super easy. If anything, our biggest problem is that guests get to the end, they have all their stuff, and then they're looking at the person we have watching the exit saying like, well, what do I do now? Just go to your seat, get out of here. Like you're good to go. And they almost don't believe you. They feel like they're stealing something. The QR code process for receipts has been super smooth. You know, the lanes that we chose have the rear loading functionality. So you never have to slow down the line or slow down the process to refill different areas. It's all done, I'll call it back of house. So it's really not guest facing when we need to refill different areas of the Zippin stores. From a financial perspective with branding, we sold sponsorship to these. So they're actually sponsored by America First Credit Union, one of our sponsors, which really helps with the upfront costs of getting the stores, almost making it a complete net positive right from the get-go.
Excellent. That's really, really incredible. Sandeep, can you talk a little bit about the demand for solutions like this? You know, what are some of the questions and concerns that stadium operators have? And what is the impact on current staff and staffing in general?
Yeah, to kind of expand on what Adam said, this has kind of really seen exponential growth for us. You talk about the day before COVID hit in 2020 was when we announced the first checkout free store. And then what happened after that, we've now, and just in our portfolio, almost have about 60 to 70 deployments across the board.
Wow.
And demand is really from all sectors, right? It's not just sports and entertainment, but racetracks, convention centers, even some of the zoos and museums have started reaching out. And so the level of demand is more in ranges. Some know exactly what it is and have maybe even been to Allegiant or other venues. Some have just asked, like, what is it? Can you explain to us? Kind of like what Jonathan showed earlier. So we really have seen quite a lot of demand for it. The questions are also varied, I would say. Certainly, first and foremost is on infrastructure. What can I do with ceiling heights, data, electricity, power? So, you know, folks like Jonathan will come out on site to scope everything and be very transparent in that process. And then the cost, right? Adam already talked about it. They were getting really creative on this is a new sponsorable asset for a lot of our companies. So how can they take advantage of this and increase variety and speed? And what does that kind of cost structure look like? What's the payback? Generally is the first couple of questions. And then staffing is really interesting, right? I think it's important for us that we redeploy staff. So you still need people to check IDs, stock, but it's really changed it from a transactional nature to more of a guest ambassador type role, which is important. And our staff loves it, right? It's new technology. They want to try it. They want to innovate, and they're seeing the impact of it. So it's really more about education and training, not just our fans, but certainly the staff as well.
Excellent. So, Jonathan, are these types of results that we're hearing typical in sports and entertainment?
Sorry, on mute there. So yeah, they're definitely typical. What we've seen from Allegiant is very much in line with what we're seeing from other venues. Obviously, the results from Allegiant are pretty eye-popping. They're truly amazing to see. You know, as the season has gone on, they've continued to get even better as the season has progressed. You know, when the guests first start interacting with this, it's great to see that, you know, adoption is very, very fast. Revenue continues to increase year over year. But as the season has gone on, all these metrics have continued to go up, with the exception of the average shopping time, which has continued to go down, which is obviously what we want to see as guests become more familiar with it. You know, they can get in and out of this very, very fast. I was at Allegiant a couple games ago. A guest literally ran from their seat to the lane, got a beverage, and was back to the seat just during a TV break. And, you know, to be able to see a guest that like knows that they can come out, do that, those are transactions that Allegiant probably was not able to see in other applications prior to this technology. But when we look at, you know, other deployments that we have, we're really looking to see about a 40-60% increase in revenue from prior locations to when we come in with our technology. But, you know, with Allegiant, unfortunately for Adam, you know, 78% is not the best metric that we've seen. There are other locations that are exceeding 100%. So while, you know, 78% is obviously phenomenal, he's still not the best yet. He'll probably get there at some point, but, you know, there's still other locations that are doing even better than them.
We're all smiling with 78% increase.
Yeah. I don't think anyone would be upset about a 78% increase anywhere. Really,
Really incredible figures, and absolutely impressive. So, Adam, on that note, What was the payback period for this investment? And are there any other upsides that you were not expecting?
I mean, we've covered a lot of them. I think like I said, the partnership piece was a big one for us. That's obviously a big chunk of money that we got back right away by branding it the America First Credit Union Smart Store. And we let them brand all four. If we, were decide to put more Zippin stores up, or if I think, we got these up very fast. As I mentioned, it took a week and we were up and running. We wanted to get it going before the season started and before we had a run of concerts. Theoretically, we could have had, partners pitching back and forth, done some partners on one side, some partners on another. They essentially just own the naming rights to that one store. It's not the entire checkout free category, right? So that's a nice revenue one. Jonathan shared the story of someone running from their seat and back. I think one of the interesting things we've seen is our Zippin stores are right across the concourse from a food concession, right? It's got burgers, hot dogs, nachos, all the normal stuff. And what we'll see is that line backs up. You'll have people in the back of that line, right? Sandeep and I are in the line together. Sandeep's staying in the line for food, and I'm going over to the Zippin store, getting us 2 beers, coming back and drinking those beers while we wait in line, getting to the front of the line and then buying 2 more beers. And that is almost become the norm. Like, we've talked to people who are in these sections that are near the Zippin stores, and that's part of their plan, is to go with multiple people so that they can be drinking while they're waiting, which is obviously good for revenue numbers.
Yes. And it's good for the
fans. And then the food piece, right? The food piece is an interesting one. I don't think we were expecting to do as well as we are doing from a revenue standpoint with, like I said, the popcorn, candy. We don't do any hot items at the Zippin store, although, Jonathan can jump in. I know that is an option. We just go with the basics, but we've seen pretty good revenue growth from the food part of the stores.
Super impressive. Sandeep, how does the checkout free experience translate to the fan experience? And, what's the adoption been like at the venues that you operate in, and why Zippin?
Yeah, I think Adam or Jonathan mentioned that comment about when fans kind of walk in, they're like, wait, I can really walk out, or I can really exit this. That's probably the most interesting translation to the fan experience, where we see across the board people who know how to use it or have tried it. I mean, they keep coming back, right? We have a stat that anytime someone enters one of these stores, they're almost converting at 90% clip rate, which is pretty significant. Like, once you're in, you're going to buy something. But the counter for all of us on this call and everyone that's listening in is like, what does that training and education really look like? Because a lot of our fans see what's happening elsewhere at hotels, restaurants, airports, and these are all starting to come in those spaces, but really have expanded far more in sports. So you will see that exact experience where people are like, I don't know what it is. I'm not sure I trust this process. Is it for real? And so we're definitely encouraging our venues to, have season ticket holder events, have them walk through, try it, because then the word will spread. So it's definitely translating when it works. It's that education piece that's most important. And like I said, adoption is very high when people use it. And in partners like Zippin, it's important to talk about flexibility, integrations, things like that, which drives a lot of this as part of the experience too.
Excellent. And, for those, to your point, Sandeep, as an educational tool, this webinar will be made available as a recording on the ALSD website. So for anyone that you may know in our audience today who was not able to participate, please direct them to our website to take a look and learn about these incredible stats that have been the results with Zippin at Allegiant. So Jonathan, for someone who's looking to get started with Zippin, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, there are really 4 main things that we always think about, and pretty much they're all the ones that we've talked about already today. First is making sure you pick the right location. A lot of people will go into conversations with us thinking that the best locations are ones that are, underutilized already. But oftentimes it's the exact opposite, that if we take a location that's already busy, add in the technology, we can really scale what that location can do in ways that would otherwise never be able to do. But often, as Sandeep said, when we walk around the venues, that's how we really understand what that is. We're very open. We want to be good partners with you. We want to find the correct locations, and we want to make sure that the technology is going to work for all the parties involved, both us, the operators, and then the guests that are actually using the space. So, first thing is always finding the correct location. Then, as Sandeep just said, actually educating the fans as to what the technology is, making sure that, the pre-event communications, any of the signage on the concourses for the guests, it really helps expedite that adoption. So as Allegiant did prior to the season, making sure that the season ticket holders in those areas are aware of what the technology is, how to use it, and what that benefit is. We were at that first event. The adoption was exceptionally fast because they did a phenomenal job educating their fans prior to them coming to the events. But then when you actually look to how to operate the stores, I'd say one of the things that's surprising to most people is what the sales impact will be on how quickly you have to restock. So making sure that the locations are set up for success. There needs to be a good plan as to when you're going to restock, but also having the product there. So if you're looking at like an NBA or an NHL arena, the time from doors until the event starting, you're obviously selling through there. You're going to restock when you can. But especially in the locations that have front or rear loading, you want to make sure you're taking advantage of the downtime so that by the time that the next break happens, whether that's, an intermission, halftime, whatever the case may be, you have all the product there, because if you don't have product, you can't sell. So making sure that the locations are well stocked is very important. And then the last item is just making sure that, across the board, this is not technology that needs to be installed outside of the event's windows. You don't need to wait from the end of one season prior to the next. As Adam said, for Allegiant, we were in within a week, had it fully operational. So there really is no reason to wait for the off season. If you can start making more money, why would you not start that immediately?
That is an excellent statement, Jonathan. Why wouldn't we want to make more money? This is incredible. These results that you've shared with us today, all of you, thank you so much. It's very common. We hear everywhere in the industry what a challenge staffing is. And, every customer wants a fast, convenient, frictionless experience. And so what you're delivering and enabling here is really incredible. The exponential revenue growth is really something else. So I think, it's a brilliant solution that helps our fans get back to their seats as quickly as possible, right? That's what they're there for. They purchased a ticket to come watch an event, watch a match, a game. So let them spend as much time in their seats as possible. This has been incredible. So we do have some questions in the Q&A. I will let whoever feels they'd like to respond to please respond. So on average, how many transactions are there on game day? Adam, why don't you let us know about what it's like at Allegiant?
Sandy, do you want to?
Yeah, we won't say the exact numbers, but you could put it this way. If you do a couple of hundred transactions that are portable, you're doubling it for these checkout free markets.
Okay. Wow. Impressive. So this was another question that was, are those metrics compared to the beer carts that were previously in the location, or a comparison to customer purchasing stadium wide year over year?
Adam, I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, that's compared to the portables that we had in those locations. So not the whole stadium, just specifically in those areas.
Great. And so payment wise, this is an interesting question. Do you accept any loyalty, like season ticket holder discounts or loaded value at the Zippin locations?
Right now, we don't. We are exploring new loyalty options, and this will be part of that conversation when we decide on a new partner for it. But at this time, we are not. Jonathan, you want to jump in? I know that it's available. We're just not doing it at this time.
Yeah, there are a couple loyalty providers that we're already integrated with. Our goal is to really allow any of the partners that we're working with to take that same application that they have anywhere else in the rest of their stadium and bring it into the Zippin ecosystem as well. We're very open, we're very flexible in trying to make sure that that same guest experience that you're seeing elsewhere, it's fully acceptable in our location as well. So while there are, I think at the moment, only a handful that we've integrated with, we're having a conversation with a ton more. We're trying to really expand that capability as much as possible and as quickly as possible. But as we continue to deploy into new locations, that number is just continuing to grow as to how many are out there. So it's still a work in progress, but we want to make sure that we are as flexible and open as possible to all the partners that we're with.
Incredible. So another question about staffing I'd like to dive back to. We did touch on staffing today and how this impacts current staff. Is there any consideration to gratuity that might have been given at a previous bar cart or beer stand that may not, be transacted here? Is there any consideration in payroll with regard to missing out on tips?
We haven't made any adjustments to that. It hasn't been an issue for us.
Hasn't been an issue. Okay, good. So this is interesting. I really am curious to hear the answer to this. If you have ever had anyone eat or drink the inventory while they are going through the experience, and how do you handle it?
They're not in there long enough to eat or drink the inventory, I would say.
Great. Yeah.
We have had people who go through and they crack their beer as they're walking through, which we do at the end anyway. So we have staff at the end of the line to make sure they don't have more than 2 drinks per person and crack any canned drinks. They can do that if they grabbed the beer from the first part of the store and opened it and started drinking it as they exited. That wouldn't affect the checkout process. So
Excellent.
there are no issues there.
So on that note about cracking a drink, do you check IDs before or after they enter the store?
Before.
Excellent. So.
And Jessica, just to expand on what Adam was saying, if a guest were to pick up an item off the shelf, consume it while they're in the store, from our perspective, obviously there might be an issue with alcohol compliance. But from the Zippin side, we're fine with that. They're being charged for that. It doesn't matter that they consumed it prior to leaving the store. Maybe that'll just help them have another purchase very quickly. But we're still tracking it. They're still being charged for it. They're really not interrupting the guest flow in any way as far as our transaction is.
Great. So, this is not, this is a question I'd like to pose. So in terms of inventory and what you're serving, since Adam, you shared that you had maybe like 5 different beers that you were selling previously. Now you have 40 SKUs just in drinks alone. How do you decide what type of grab and go options to put in there? Is that in collaboration with Levy on building out like the menu there? Can you talk a little bit more about that and how you select the fare for those locations?
Yes, it's definitely in collaboration with Levy and our partners, right? So all of our beverage partners, like I said, they've used this as an opportunity. We have our norms. We have Modelo, we have Coors, we have that front and center. We have Coke products front and center. But it's given, Bacardi an opportunity to try out some of their different ready-made cocktails or seltzers. And what's so nice about this is if it doesn't do well at one event, they swap it out for another one the next day. You're not working with it's not hard to adjust. The menu board we can change on the fly, and you could theoretically backfill the coolers in the middle of an event if you wanted to. I mean, if you wanted to change something at halftime, you could change a SKU at halftime, I would think. Sandy, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add there, but yeah, I mean, we do it in partnership. We've tried out some new fun things, figuring out what works event by event. Not afraid to make changes. And
that's awesome. But in terms of the food now, this essentially gives you like another concession location, because previously if they were just beer carts, we're only selling beer. Now you can sell food as well. So are you just like adding another location of replicating another concession stand, or do you make each Zippin location unique with the food offerings?
Right now we're treating them all the same. Each store is identical, I would say, from a SKU variety perspective. It's an interesting thing to look into and something we could do. I mean, we've had about 15 events, I would say, with the stores in. So we're learning more as we go. I would say that the variety of SKUs is different now than it was when we opened. And partners are, learning more and more about it and seeing how they do in these stores, and then they're changing what they might want in there, right? Coke would be a good example. Like they're trying out new energy drinks and different things, or different smart waters. And if those aren't doing well, they might try something different. It's been a nice setup for them to be able to test different items.
Yeah, that's a real interesting perspective. If you think about how Zippin, this innovative solution, will drive food and beverage manufacturers to create more ready to go or ready to eat on the go products, right? The food and beverage industry is going to have to keep up with you in that regard. So that's great. So a question came up about something that was answered previously. I'll just jump back to about sometimes, I think, Jonathan, you mentioned some people think they're stealing something, or Adam, maybe they don't know that they can walk out. So do you think maybe that's because they don't see the receipt or the summary at the end of their walk or exit?
I think it's really just because you're changing how a guest interacts with the space so drastically. It's no longer that you're walking up, you're interacting with the person to check out. You're completely changing the guest experience in a way that you're not seeing. So it would probably be closest analogous to, when previously you went to like CVS or any department stores, you'd always go to cashier. Now in that type of environment, you're already seeing the move into self-checkout. Now that's being brought into stadiums, and it's in some ways I'd say a little bit more effective because you're able to so much more quickly move through the checkout process. But it's really that the reason why there's that slight hurdle there is that it's so far outside the norm of what you're expecting in any other scenario.
Yeah, even when you're going to a self-checkout lane at the grocery store, you're still having to scan your stuff. You're not doing that. It's once you run your credit card and you go through the turnstile, you're done with the transaction at that point. Now it's just grabbing your food and drink and going. And then the receipt part, I think that got mentioned.
Yeah,
no, it hasn't been an issue. Yeah, there's a QR code there, but also it's very easy to pull your receipt up afterwards. So we have, FAQs on our website, and we'll get a handful of emails. Can I get the receipt from that? Zippin has a website where you just go there, you put in the venue you were at, the last 4 digits of the card you used, and you've got your receipt itemized. So
great.
Do some people miss the QR code? Yes, but it's not hard for them to backtrack and get the receipt for their items.
That's great. That's really helpful to know. So with that regard of not having to scan anything or really pause at any point in time, were you able to reduce staffing versus the previous locations that you had there?
It's reduced slightly. We have 2 entrances at each of our stores. So we'll have 1 or 2 people there. I think we're getting it down to where we only need 1 person as more and more people learn about what it is and how it works. And then we'll have 1 person at the end of the line for each store to make sure that they're not bringing more drinks out than they're allowed to do. So we have a 2-drink limit per person. So they're really just there to count that, make sure that the beer is cracked. Occasionally we'll have a concert or an event where it's an all pour event, and we'll have the person there to, we'll set up a table so they can pour the beer out into the cup. That's pretty infrequent on the 300 level. If we were doing this on floor seating, it would be a different story. But where we are, it hasn't been that much of an issue. I think someone mentioned it. I don't remember if it was Sandeep or Jonathan, but it's not so much the number of staff as much as what that staff is focusing on. And now they're really focusing on the guest experience. They're able to chat with the guests. They're able to explain to them how it works. It's a much more fun conversation than a transactional conversation, right? Like I said, most of them end with, what do I do now? Go back to your seat. And it's just a better experience for the guests than, here's my credit card. Here's $18. Your total is $18. Can I get a receipt? It's gone from transactional to a guest experience.
Absolutely. It's wonderful, really, that the way that you just described it is what we all want and what we all think about, where we go personally when we get to be the fans, what we would want to have. So this is a great question in terms of being able to restock. And it has been mentioned here that you can do it, at basically any point in time. So can you tell us how you are made aware of the current inventory stock levels? Like, is there a reporting system, and how live is that reporting?
Yes. Go ahead.
Yep. So it can be done a couple different ways. Obviously, when the team members and the supervisors, managers are there, if they walk by locations, very quickly it's obvious to see when something needs to be restocked. But we also do have a crew app that would, it has every location loaded onto it. It has the exact SKUs. It has the the shelf information for where every single item is. So as those items are depleted throughout the course of the event, you can have it set up so there's automatic notifications that come to specific team members to let them know, like, hey, location 102, Coors Light is running low. It's reached 10% of the initial starting amount, or whatever those numbers are that you really want to get notifications about. So we can have it both ways. Obviously, visually, you can see when it needs to be restocked, but there is a tech involved with that as well to let someone know, just so that they don't have to worry that a location is running low without them being on site.
Excellent. That's helpful. So is there any other data that's being collected around customers and their actions? Like any other sales data, or is it just simply inventory, what they're buying?
More from a macro perspective, sales for sure, but also just NPS scores or surveys, which can be either at the point of purchase or after. So you're kind of collecting that from the voice of the fan. But the speed of service, right? I think one of the biggest questions of the industry is how much time do people spend in lines, which you can't truly calculate in a traditional model. Here you can. You know exactly when someone taps in, what they do in the store, and they walk out. So that's a huge metric for us as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And just from the Zippin side on that, obviously, as we're looking at all this information, as Sandeep said, just the amount of time that a guest is spending in the location, how long they're going from tap to exit, there's a lot of additional information, additional data that we're able to capture that you would never get from a normal concession stand. There's a lot of secondary data that we're still, putting together and understanding in very different ways because it is so new. And then just understanding how we can share that back with, Sandeep and Allegiant or in any of our partners, just that they have even more information about their locations.
That's fantastic. Really incredible. Actually, quick question here on what type of camera do you use? Do you happen to know that, Jonathan?
Yeah, we, if you look at it visually, it looks it does not look very different from a standard security camera that's installed throughout any of the stadiums. So it's nothing very special, but obviously the biggest difference between our tech and a security camera is just the tech that actually runs it on the back end. So, the camera, while it's important, the tech that actually operates that is far more important.
Understandable. So Adam, here's a question for you. With the success that you've had with the 4 locations, are there plans to expand? It sounds like yes. And what are the best practices on balancing between all the F&B options within your venue? Of course, in-seat delivery, mobile order pickup, Zippin, checkout free.
Yep. Yeah, it's a good question. We are looking into options. Like I said from the very beginning, the location is really the most important. I think it was Jonathan said it's not necessarily, or it's really not at all looking at areas that are underutilized. It's trying to find the areas that are overcrowded and how to clean up that space. We're checking around. We have a couple ideas. I do think we'll get there. We just want to be strategic about it. I would say what's really nice, and we haven't touched on this, is that the Zippin store, to a point, can really look however we want it to. So we went with, we found our area, and then we worked with Jonathan and we worked with the design team on how to make a Zippin store work in that space. When we find the next space that we think we want to clean up the congestion, that'll be the next conversation, right? Is getting with Jonathan and his team and sitting down and going, what makes sense? Maybe it's not 4 coolers. Maybe it's 2 coolers. Maybe it's actually replacing a full concession and having more of the store like you saw in one of the slides, as opposed to just a lane like what we have right now. Mm-hmm. Because there's so many options, we're going to take our time, I think, looking into it. But it's definitely a priority. It's working very well. And I think that if we can find a second or third location to put these, it would be a no-brainer. I don't think that it conflicts with in-seat service or any of those other ones. We do in-seat service also. That's an important one. We do it in select locations, just like how Zippin is in our 300 level. The way our stadium is split, we have a 300 level and a 400 level. Everyone kind of enters, I'll call it in between. If you go down to your seats in the 300 level, up to your seats in the 400 level. So you're really servicing 2 different areas with our third deck concourse, and that's where we have the Zippin stores. Our in-seat service is more focused on our lower level, our club seats, our 100 level seats. So you're kind of giving different options in different areas. If we expanded Zippin, we'd probably look at the 100 or 200 level. If we expanded in-seat service, we'd probably look at the 200 or 300 level. I don't think that they fight each other. I think it's just giving more options to the guest.
Excellent. Great answer. More options. So on that note of how you can make a Zippin store really look like anything you want, there is a question here, Jonathan, that I would guess you can't answer at this moment, on what the rough cost is of turning an existing store into a Zippin store. Say 250 square feet is the example given in this question. I imagine there's a lot more factors that go into it, from, infrastructure and whatnot. But if that's something you're able to share now, please do. If not, if there's more custom requirement gathering involved, that's understandable.
Yeah, it would really be doing a disservice to give any number without a ton more information. Obviously, square footage is one thing, ceiling heights is another, and then what the actual build out of that location would look like. Are we doing only beverages? Are we doing hot food? Are we doing freezers? We've peg hooks that you can just have items hung up as well. So there's a lot of variables that go into what that pricing would be. But to whoever's asking that question, happy to have a conversation and get you a really more precise estimate as to what that would be.
Yes, please. So to the attendee who asked that question, Jonathan's email will be up at the end of the webinar today. Please reach out to him directly. So another question, jumping back to, excuse me, the checking of IDs. So if somebody wants to come in and just purchase popcorn, are you IDing every single person that goes into a location that sells alcohol, or how do you determine who to ID?
We are IDing everyone. If someone came and just wanted popcorn, we would let them go through the process and just keep an eye on them. I don't think that has been a regular transaction, but we wouldn't deny them entry to the Zippin store.
And Jess, I'll broaden that because there's a lot of strategy that's customized to every venue here. You could do, some of them are just non-alcoholic, some are only alcohol, so you can adjust your strategy there. And there's many partners on this call that know that there's a lot of progress and updates on just ID checks in general. How do you automate that process so that it's all seamless? There's a lot in this space that's coming up.
Excellent. So in closing, I think we'll just do one last question here. Do you do processing on the cloud or in the store?
So it's mostly in the cloud. The goal is to have as little infrastructure on site as possible. Obviously, with that, it allows us to have very low bandwidth requirements, which is great in a stadium because if the requirement is too high, that has been found to be something that is a little bit harder for the stadium to provide. Like if I had gone to Adam and said, hey, I need a gigabyte up and down with redundant requirements there, the conversation would probably have been a little bit harder than, hey, I need 15 megabytes up and down, and that's all I need.
Certainly. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed this conversation today, and I wish we could keep going longer. The questions keep coming in. So it sounds like, Jonathan, you're going to have a lot of emails in your inbox from folks who want answers to more of their questions. But really, in summary, it's all about the customer experience, right? That's what every one of us in this business is after, improving the customer experience. Speed of service and overall just, customer satisfaction is naturally going to drive retention, incremental sales, referral business, and so on and so on. So from the ALSD perspective, with our growing technology division and an eye on innovation like Zippin, checkout free convenience, we are all connected. You cannot have technology without involving food and beverage and vice versa. And the venue operations team and everyone has to be involved in these important decisions that impact the guest experience. And so I think that's our objective with the technology division within the ALSD, is to get all of these voices together, just as we did today, to better understand the ecosystem of the workflow of what is required here in putting innovative solutions in place in our existing, not just new, but existing operations as well. So I can't thank you all enough. I really appreciate you sharing your subject matter expertise and your experience with us. And kudos, congratulations, Zippin. And it's amazing, Adam, the results, and Sandeep, the results that you guys have achieved there. And no doubt you'll have even more results with more stores that are coming, it sounds like. So thank you all very much. Again, you will find this webinar on the ALSD website, and I wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving next week. Bye, everyone.